Can you hear? Is it coming through? Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Cleeway, for bringing us into a time of worship. And now I invite you to stand as you're able, in person, online, as we sing our gathering song, Come Now is the Time to Worship, in Voices Together, number 29, or also up on the overhead. Number 29.
So many of us here in the sanctuary and also on Zoom. Thank you all for being here this evening. One housekeeping thing as we get started. As always, we have little colorful sheets in our bulletins. If you're here in person, please take a minute at some point between now and the offering to fill those out, just to let us know you're here, and anything else that's going on the back. It's one way that we can stay connected with each other. Our theme in Lent this year is dwelling in dissonance, and that felt very apt for me yesterday as I enjoyed the beautiful spring day and saw really terrible things happening every time that I looked at my phone. So we're here because God can hold us in all of that, and it's a space where we can come together and process that and reflect, and then also go out to respond. So please join me in our call to worship this morning. It will be a responsive reading that should be up on the screen. We come to worship. Oh, go ahead. We come to worship with expectations that may or may not be met, with questions that might not be answered, and answers that might be questioned. We come seeking God, seeking a taste of truth, seeking a glimpse of divine presence, seeking to make sense of the world. We come to journey with Jesus and allow ourselves to be disarmed and inspired, moved and confused by the Spirit of Christ among us and within us. Let us worship God. Amen. And
I'll invite you to stand again as you're able as we sing number 491, Christ on the Night He Was Betrayed. This one was a new song to me. I mean, it's been around for a couple hundred years, so maybe you've sung it before, but I think it has really great text, and I think the melody is beautiful as well. So, Christ on the Night He Was Betrayed.
Now before the festival of the Passover, Jesus knew that his hour had come to depart from this world and go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. The devil had already decided that Judas, son of Simon Iscariot, would betray Jesus. And during supper, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, and that he had come from God and was going to God, got up from supper, took off his outer robe, and tied a towel around himself. Then he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, to wipe them with the towel that was tied around him. Word of God.
Whoa, Jesus, what are you doing? Put that back. Here, let me.
No, I got it.
Oh, but you...
Just sit down, okay?
Okay, if you say so. Whoa, Jesus. Are you trying to wash my feet? I should be the one to wash your feet, and that would be an honor for me.
Peter, okay, Peter.
But even John the Baptist said he wasn't worthy to untie your sandals,
Just
right?
let me do this, okay?
But it's not.
Listen, I know you don't understand right now, but you will understand, okay?
No, you can't wash my feet. You're the,
Listen, if you don't let me wash you, you will not have a place with me.
Then wash all of me. Wash my head and my hands too.
Those who have bathed only need to have their feet washed to be completely clean, and you will be also. So please sit.
You're right, Jesus. I don't understand.
It's all good, bro.
The end.
The young people are invited forward for a children's moment. All right. We're going to repeat a little bit more of what just happened. You heard part of the story. What did Peter say to Jesus? He said, no, and don't wash my feet. Okay, so they're talking about foot washing. Have you washed anybody's feet yet today? No, okay, me neither. But we sort of understand what it's about. So if you come to my house, pretty much any day of the year, and you come in the front door, there's going to be a pile of shoes. See those shoes? Those are soccer season shoes. Sometimes I come in the front door, and I can tell that Silas's friends are all over. And there's a pile of Silas friends' shoes. Or I come in the house and I can see that it's Lila's friends' shoes. That's a Lila friend pile. Or I come in the house and it's Elijah's friends' shoes. And maybe they're in the basement or maybe they're outside barefoot. You never know. Or when all the cousins are over, there's a pile of shoes so big that it basically takes over the whole foyer. And if you actually need to find your shoes, you are out of luck. We have piles of shoes that are summertime shoes. We have piles of shoes that are wintertime shoes. And obviously, I sort of like it because I'm taking these pictures that are in my phone. Because to me, it always is like, okay, there's a group of people here, the house is full. Like, I really like it when there's a lot of kids in my house. Do your families have shoes at the front door? What happens when you all get to your front door? How does your family do it?
We have the mudroom, and it always gets crowded with shoes, and I always know someone's over because they have these neat 2 pairs of shoes against the big pile of shoes.
Guests do a neat pile. What else? How does your family do it? Do you take your shoes off when you come inside?
They kind of get thrown around, and then eventually someone will realize it's a disaster and just can't take it anymore, and it'll sort them out.
It's seasonal shoes. When there starts to be like 3 pairs of shoes per person, that's when you know that it's like somebody's got to do something about it. Well, we put our shoes by the front door so that the dirt doesn't get tracked around the house, right? And sometimes we leave shoes on. We're not like very strict about it. Some households are very strict about it, and that's what the practice that they always do. So different families do it differently. But in Jesus' time, this is what their shoes looked like. It was sort of a combination of a leather base and then leather straps. And so if you were walking on dirt roads, what would happen to your feet? Super dirty. So even if you went into somebody's house and you took off the sandal, your feet would still be quite dirty. So it was a common practice in households that had servants especially, that when you arrived at the home, somebody would stop and wash your feet. And it wouldn't be, who do you think it would be?
Like the servants?
Yeah, servants. It was not very fancy work.
Yeah, people that live there maybe.
Yeah, it was usually the servants. And that's why Peter, in that acting out, Peter's saying, it's not Jesus, you can't do the work of a servant. That would be super weird. And speaking of super weird, think of your best friend. Actually, maybe look around. Who's your best friend here at church? Have you ever touched their feet? Do you want to touch their feet right now? No, it's super weird. It's super weird. But I'm going to invite one of my friends forward, and I'm going to wash her feet, and you can see what it looks like. And while I wash her feet, Lila will read this passage to you again. I'm just going to get you through here. I'll grab some of these things. You can sit in this chair. If you don't mind. Oh, okay. Do you mind being up? Not at all.
Jesus knew he was going to die while he was in Jerusalem. As he thought about leaving this world, he was reminded how much he loved his disciples. He would love them until the very end. So that night, during dinner with his disciples, Jesus got up from the table. He took off his outer robe and tied a towel around his waist. He poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with the towel. The disciples looked back and forth. Why was he doing this? This was a servant's job. Jesus knelt before Simon Peter, who said, "Lord, are you really going to wash my feet?" Jesus nodded, saying, "Right now you don't understand what I am doing, but later you will." Peter resisted. "You will never wash my feet," he said. "I must wash your feet for you to belong to me," Jesus replied. Now Peter understood. "Then wash my feet and hands and head," he said eagerly. But Jesus said, "A person who is bathed does not need to be washed again, except for the feet. You are clean, although not everyone at this table is." Jesus said this because he knew that Judas was going to betray him. After washing everyone's feet, he put on his robe and came back to the table. "Do you understand what I have done?" Jesus asked. "You call me teacher and Lord, and you are right. That is what I am. I have set an example for you as your teacher. I have washed your feet. Now do as I have done and wash each other's feet."
Jesus set an example, and he was talking about foot washing, but he probably meant something else. What do you think what was the example that Jesus set?
To be clean, to be clean of no sins.
So symbolically clean? Yeah. What else? We already talked about washing your friend. Think about somebody in your life, you all too. Think about somebody in your life that is not your best friend. Someone who maybe you have some tension or disagreements, someone who's unkind, someone you don't really respect. Think about that person. Could you wash their feet? That'd be tough. So when Jesus says, "I'm giving you an example," what is this example? What is this example of serving other people, do you think?
Maybe that everyone is equals.
Everyone's equals? Any other thoughts? A modern day example of washing someone's feet might be serving somebody, doing a difficult task for them. Maybe treating them with kindness in a public way. But the example that Jesus gives us is one of service, absolutely. And service even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's hard. Let's pray. Jesus, help us serve others, but also to be served ourselves. Help us do this when it's hard. Help us do this with hearts full of love. Amen.
If there's any kids ages pre-K through kindergarten, they're welcome to go follow Jeannie back there to Children's Church during the service. And for us, I'll invite you to turn to number 306, and voices together. I want Jesus to walk with me. We'll stay seated for this as we prepare for receiving the message. But number 306, I want Jesus to walk with me.
John 13, 12 to 17. After he had finished washing their feet, he put on his robe and reclined again and said to them, "Do you know what I have done to you? You call me teacher and Lord, and you are right, for that is what I am. So if I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have set you an example, that you should also do as I have done to you. Very truly I tell you, slaves are not greater than their masters, nor are messengers greater than the ones who sent them. If you do these things, you are blessed if you do them."
I appreciate that this morning we've kind of got to see this story kind of unfold in two readings and a reenactment and what Kendra shared with the kids, because I think it gives us a full picture. You know, we got to tease out some of the nuance of what Jesus is doing in this passage and kind of who Jesus is. It's actually a wonderful picture of Jesus loving and serving, right? We talked about both of those things. A way that we are meant to live as well, which sounds great. It sounds, I mean, we see that and we're like, of course, that is how we should do it. And I think what Kendra said is really helpful of like, oh, but maybe it's not. Like, what if you had to think about doing this in a place where it's not as easy, right? And that is the question for us. And I think when we look at Jesus in this picture, but then we try to put it into our real world, would this Jesus that we've just seen, heard, would that Jesus bomb another country? I mean, you know, it sounds obvious when I say it that way, right? Would Jesus tell someone that their identity is false and take away their right to vote and participate in society? Would that Jesus do that? Would Jesus put on a mask and violently kidnap vulnerable people off the streets of our cities? Not that Jesus. So, as mysterious as Jesus was at times, and even in this text, he's a little bit ambiguous, I think, and as confused as we might be about what Jesus is up to, like these disciples were, and I think like we are quite often as well. Don't we also know deep down a little bit about Jesus? I think we're like, of course Jesus wouldn't do any of those things. So we do know some things, and we do know how Jesus calls us to live and how he modeled to live. But still we have questions. Okay, we do have questions. And there's a lot of language, when you look through this text, and go read through it this week, just to kind of see it all unfold. Because there is a lot of language about knowing and not knowing. It's actually really interesting in this particular text, where Jesus seems to know a lot, and the others don't seem to know much. And I think like Maxwell and Dwayne really helped us see that part of it. Jesus is saying these things. I don't understand. That doesn't make sense to me what you're doing. And so we can see ourselves, I think, in this story, because quite often we don't understand what is going on, right? So if you look in this text, in the very beginning, I'll tell you some of them where it talks about knowing. It says Jesus knew his hour had come. He knew that his hour had come where he was going to go die, right? That's how it starts. And then it says during supper, knowing that God was at work, Jesus started this action of taking off his robe and doing these things. He knew what was going on. He's part of this thing. And he comes to Simon Peter, right? This story that we saw here about, are you going to wash my feet? And Jesus says, you do not know now what I am doing. You're confused. This is confusing, I understand. It later says that Jesus knew who was going to betray him, who was betraying him. And then after he washed his feet, this last part that we read, he put on his robe, and he says, do you know what I have done here? Do you understand? And then lastly, this last part that Gene read for us, he says the thing about slaves and masters, and says, if you know these things, you are blessed if you do them. If you know these things that I've been talking about, that I've been just demonstrating, and you do them, you will be blessed. You will be living life the way it is meant to be lived. And we see that the disciples clearly are in this space of dissonance. This is the series that we're doing, right? This whole dwelling in dissonance and looking at texts and passages that don't seem to be as evident or clear or obvious as we might like. And so they have this dissonance. Their rabbi is washing feet. That wasn't how it was supposed to be, right? I think we talked about that with the kids. It would generally be a servant. That was a lower social thing, a lower person's job. Not the top person, right? In their lives, Jesus was the top person. And then he said that this was necessary. So this gets really weird. It's necessary for following me to have your feet washed. So, it's not necessary to have a great education. It's not necessary to have great qualifications. Those are the kinds of things that we think might be necessary to do something. He's like, no, you need to have your feet washed. You need to have been served. And then you need to do the same for others. He's introducing a new way. We need this reintroduced to us regularly. I need this introduced or reminded to me regularly. Because it goes against the norm. It goes against what I want, actually. I want to be served. It goes against my natural inclinations. There is a lot that we feel like we don't know or how to act. Big things, small things. How do we work against injustice in our city? Watching things not happen the way they're supposed to happen. Systems not working. People getting harmed, right? Things just kind of getting pushed through without proper procedures. How do we help our friends and trans siblings and ourselves while unjust legislation is just going through? What do we do? What do we do? How do we advocate for peace in a country that is so committed to war and violence? That it has been from day one, will continue to be, I'm sure. We're swimming, against that very strong current in this country. So how do we do that? How do we do that? Or something else. Okay, that's all just kind of big things. You might have a more personal thing, a relational thing, something happening in your own life, or we do as a church. Things where we're not really sure. Which can feel overwhelming, like it did, I think, for these disciples, where we just kind of feel lost. How many of us feel sort of a little lost on a daily basis of what to do with so much? And we don't know. We get paralyzed, or we just unsure how to respond, how to act, how to live. We are experiencing our own dissonance. Toby said that to me this morning, just kind of before church, of this series is where I am this weekend. So there's some hope, I think, in there that Jesus knows what's going on. I think. I know he knows what's going on. I hope there's some hope in that. Because in that text, right, Jesus seems to be aware of the bigger picture. It kind of gives these he knew what God was doing, he knew the plan, he knew what was going to happen, he knew someone was betraying him, all these kinds of things. And so, because he does, he demonstrates how to live in that space. And then tells us to also live this way, in that space. Even though they wouldn't understand at the time. Even though we don't always understand at the time. And I wish that, it would be really nice if I could say, I was talking to Rebecca this morning about, I wish I could just say this part for the sermon and be done with it. Because it's not simple or as nice as I would like. It's not as simple or as nice or as clear as I would like, or as we would like. That we see in our text, right? Jesus actually doesn't tell them any of the specifics, really. He knows and doesn't say. And I think maybe you. I want to know, all the details. I'm a detail person. I like to have the big picture and then know how the parts are going to work together to do the thing. How is it going to work out? What are we moving toward? It feels like all that's up for grabs and gray at the moment. What do we know? Is this even going to work? And then Jesus shows this way. And I feel I wish he would have done something different. Washing feet in the middle of all this chaos. He doesn't say, strike back. He doesn't say, just take care of yourself and let other people worry about themselves. Those are really nice, simple ways to live, right? But he doesn't do either of those. In fact, he kind of does the exact opposite of those things. So for us, it's are we listening? Are we looking? Do we know how to hear? When it's not that answer that we want, it's the answer that we need. There are things that we do know, so I want to just, give us a little bit to hang on, right? Sure, in the midst of all these unknowns in our lives, in our world that we're talking about, there are some things that we can know, right? And I think are clear. They're clear in this text. They're clear in what we know of Jesus. That we are loved by God. Now, and that's a really big statement just to kind of throw in, and I hope that you do know that. My hunch is many of us don't feel that all the time, right? Okay, so I say that as this is true and it's not as simple like all this other stuff. But it gives us a framework in which we're going to do the other stuff, right? We are to love our neighbors like ourselves. Pretty much the main teaching of Jesus, you could argue. And also, by the way, everyone, in fact, the worst person that you can think of is who I'm talking about, or who Jesus was talking about. Because I know when we hear neighbor, I think of the person that actually lives next door to me that I kind of like, or my family, or my friends. So we know that. There is no ambiguity to that. There is no ambiguity to that. We are to love our neighbors as ourselves. I think we know, whether or not we experience it or find it to be helpful, we should pray. Whatever that means to you. Sit with God. Say your stuff. Listen and see if you hear something. Talk with other people about what it seems like God is doing. We skip over that one, I think, us kind of justice-y progressive people. We're just really busy doing stuff all the time. Good intentions, fine. But what if we just listen for a little bit more? Maybe God would say something more specific. And I think we can know that God's Spirit is at work even when we don't see or experience it. And I don't mean that as everything's going to turn out fine. I don't mean that's any horrible thing is there's some great purpose in it. I don't think that, actually. I do think God can work through anything, some way, somehow, at some point. So, this text, it's you're not even going to understand this for now. But maybe after a while you'll get what was going on here. So I think we do know enough to live. But we also need to keep listening and learning, like always. Always, always. And I think doing it together is helpful, right? We have one another to try things and to listen and to ask questions and to hear God through one another and what you're experiencing and what you're feeling and thinking. And so my challenge to us really is, what if we tried? Why don't we just try to do what Jesus said? It's super easy to go that's stupid, that is dumb, that's make-believe, fairy tale stuff, wash people's feet, love other people. What if we took Jesus at his word and lived that way? What would we lose? What would we lose? So that would be my encouragement. What if we stopped saying why it doesn't work and actually try to live the way that Jesus talks about? And like Kendra said, washing feet might actually be washing feet, and it might be a whole lot of other things too, right? So what does that mean for us? With our neighbors, with our enemies, with the people around us, the people in this room, the people outside. Those are just questions, really. So I'm going to pray. God, these are the realities that we live in. We are faced with so many things that feel confusing, that feel impossible, that seem not how they're supposed to be. And in the middle of all that, you say to serve and to love. Help us to encourage one another to live that way, to grow in that, to listen and to learn that. Each, but also together. Might we be a people who washes the feet of others, who pays attention to what you're doing, and God tries our best to be part of that too. So we put these questions, these requests, these prayers, these yearnings and longings of our hearts before you, and ask that you would just be at work and be speaking and help us to pay attention and to know how to live. Thank you, Jesus, for your words. Thank you for your demonstration of how to live. May we be bold enough to give it a try. Amen.
We would stay seated as we have our Song of Response number 540 in Voices Together, the number 540. Will you come and follow me, and let this be our response to Arthur's message and all that we've heard so far today.